start. It is 1:01, and I am calling the March 21st, 2022 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. A quorum is present. Architectural Review Board members present electronically are Frank Hancock, Dade Vanderwerf. We're expecting Frank, but he's not here yet. Tara Matsuno and myself, Chris Henningsen. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website at the county calendar. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This online meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Everyone who is participating today, it is good practice to mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Carolyn will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
I do, Chris. I will need to recuse myself from 2 items on the agenda today. ARB-2022-17, Rio Point initial site plan, and then also ARB-2022-15, Crozet self-storage.
Right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a disclosure related to Crozet self-storage. I'm not going to recuse myself, but I did want the board, and Margaret knows this already. An agent who works for us has been helping the seller of that property. There is no compensation being offered as part of that, but I did want the board to know that there is a connection there. And if someone's uncomfortable with that, then I'm happy to recuse myself.
Yeah, I, for one, don't have any concerns about that. Dave?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I just need to disclose that I spoke to a representative of the applicant for the Crozet self-storage.
As did I. I also had a meeting with a representative from Crozet self-storage as well.
Yeah, as did I.
And he had reached out to me, but I had not scheduled anything, but he reached out.
All right. All right, well, thank you. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review today?
No, I don't have anyone with their hand raised at this time.
All right, great. So moving on to the consent agenda. There is one consent agenda item today, which is ARB-2022-17, Rio Point initial plan. Do any ARB members want to move this item off the consent agenda and have a discussion about it? All right, well, in that case, would anybody like to move to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, could I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, Carolyn, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, On to the regular review items. We have 3 review items today. They will be presented by Chris Taggart and Margaret Malashewski from the Planning Division of Community Development. The first item is ARB-2022-13, Rhines and Rogers Jewelers Signs and Shoppers World Retail Building Comprehensive Sign Plan. Margaret, you have your, yes, you have your presentation.
I am trying to share it with you. Let me keep trying. Are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation? Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, this is a proposal to revise some of the criteria of the approved comprehensive sign plan for the Shoppers World Retail Building to allow the installation of 2 wall signs for Rhines and Rogers Jewelers. The retail building is located at the south end of the shopping center that's now called 29th Place. It's at the intersection of Route 29 and Dominion Drive. The retail building was reviewed and approved by the ARB together with a replacement McDonald's building back in 1999, and a certificate of appropriateness was issued for that part of the development in April of 2000. I'll note that the architectural design was approved by the ARB with awnings made of sunbrella fabric in the color black cherry. As you look at some of these images, you'll see that some of those original awnings have been replaced with awnings of various colors. Property management is researching replacement options at this time. The black cherry color is no longer available. Design criteria for the wall signs for the building were approved on March 2nd of 2000. And the approved comprehensive sign plan limits wall signs to channel letter signs with white faces. The applicant would like to add black as a letter face color, noting that the appropriate appearance of the DSW wall sign that's installed elsewhere in the shopping center. The black faces would use day-night film, which would allow the faces to illuminate white at night. Now, the purpose of a comprehensive sign plan is to establish a level of coordination for signs across a building or throughout a shopping center. And in this proposal, coordination would be achieved by maintaining a single sign type, limiting letter face colors, and by using a single illumination type. Unity would be further enhanced by limiting the color of nighttime illumination to white, and the addition of a neutral daytime letter face color that's already used elsewhere in the development is not expected to have a negative visual impact on the entrance corridor. Using channel letters with white or black faces would maintain a simple and reserved appearance for the building during the day, and requiring the channel letters that have black faces to still illuminate white at night would help ensure a consistent appearance at nighttime. So our recommendation is for approval of the changes to the comprehensive sign plan and approval of the Rhines and Rogers wall signs. This slide shows the applicant's proposed changes in red together with staff's additions in blue. The staff's additions are there just to clarify the type of illumination and to clarify the locations for the signs in that tower element of the building. And those items were not clearly specified in the original comprehensive sign plan. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Do any board members have any questions? Frank Hancock?
Yes, thanks, Margaret. Just one quick question. Has the applicant reviewed staff's changes, the items in blue?
I have not spoken with the applicant since we set out the staff report. I would imagine that they're not a problem, not really providing any limitations than what was already in place.
Okay, thank you.
Frank Stoner?
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Chris.
Tara?
No, no questions.
All right. Dade?
No questions. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Margaret.
And I don't have any questions either. Thanks, Margaret, for your presentation. Is the applicant present and have a presentation to make?
I am present. I don't really have much to add to Margaret's comments, other than that this particular tenant obviously has a different fascia color than the other tenants who are on a brick sign band. This has a lighter colored stucco material, so the black letters would have better contrast.
All right, great. So board member questions for the applicant. Frank Stoner,
I don't have any questions.
Tara,
I'd just like to know if the applicant is okay with the changes that staff has proposed.
Yes, yes, we're comfortable with those changes.
Okay, great.
Dade,
No questions, thank you.
thanks. Frank Hancock.
No, Tara took my question.
All right, and I don't have any questions either. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment?
I do not have anyone with their hand up at this time.
All right, so the ARB will now go into discussion. Tara, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Dade,
No comments. It seems like a very good proposal. I appreciate staff's additional recommendations.
Frank Stoner,
No comments.
Frank Hancock,
I don't have any comments either.
and I don't have any comments either, other than echoing Dade's. I thought the staff additions were reasonable and good additions. So if we could review the recommended motion.
I've split this into two actions, one on the comprehensive sign plan. Are you able to see my Word document? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So the motion would be to approve the comprehensive sign plan with the revisions as outlined in the table in the staff report.
All right. Well, it didn't sound like anyone had any concerns. Is there anyone like to make any modifications or would like to move?
Move that we approve the comprehensive sign plan for ARB 2022-13 Shoppers World Retail Building with revisions as outlined below in the staff report.
I'll second the motion.
All right, great. So Caroline, could we do the vote?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then the second action would just be on the signs as they were proposed. Our recommendation is for approval with the signs as proposed.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion on that?
Chair, I'll move that we approve the Rhines and Rogers wall signs as proposed.
I'll second the motion.
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye. I will note the motion was made by Mr. Stoner.
Thank you.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno. Can't say your name.
Aye. Matsuno.
That is, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't get it out. Thank you. Sorry, it's Monday now. Sorry.
All right. So the next item is ARB 2022-08 RST Residences. Chris, are you ready with your presentation?
Yes, Chris. Hold
All
on
right,
one
thank you.
second. Are you viewing the slide screen?
Yep.
Okay. The application you are reviewing today is a proposal to establish a residential development consisting of 5 apartment buildings and 78 townhouses. The ARB recommended approval of the initial plan and provided preliminary comments on the architectural design on November 15th, 2021. Rezoning and special exception were also approved for this property on the same day. The focus of staff report is largely on the architectural design of apartment buildings 3 and 4 and the landscaping along the frontage and interior and perimeter of the large parking lot south of building 4. Revisions to the architectural design of the west elevations of building 3 and 4 have been made. While the changes help to further break up the massing, their overall appearance still reads as secondary elevations. In staff's review of the material board provided, the white and tan copper color samples appear brighter than the color shown in perspectives and elevations. The applicant has indicated that the shade of white has been revised since the previous submittal, but the color is still expected to be visible through the vegetated buffer. More muted color would be appropriate. The landscape plan has been revised to resolve the frontage tree utility conflict, show trees in the gaps that were present along the frontage east of the VDOT project parcel and north of Ridgewood Drive. The plan also now shows trees in and around the large parking lot south of building 4, along Travelway B and Archer Avenue, and along a portion of the west elevation of building 1B. However, the plan also shows landscaping that does not meet some of the guidelines, including frontage and perimeter and interior parking lot tree size. Staff recommends revising the landscape plan to show tree calipers that meet frontage and parking area requirements. The plan has also been revised to show a dumpster enclosure along the western perimeter of the large parking lot south of building 4. The detail for the enclosure notes the material will be a warm dark brick to match the one used in the apartment buildings, but screening of this enclosure is relying on the off-site vegetation on the VDOT parcel to the west. The previous mentioned parking area is also relying on this off-site vegetation to provide screening. Staff recommends revising the landscape plan to provide shrubs along the western side of the dumpster enclosure and the west and south sides of the large parking lot. Our recommendations for approval of the final site plan with the revisions listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Chris. Dave, do you have any questions?
None for me. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Chris, for your presentation.
Frank Stoner?
No, I don't think I have any questions at this time, Chris.
Frank Hancock?
No, thanks, Chris.
Tara?
Questions? Thank you.
All right, and I do not have any questions either. So is the applicant going to make a presentation?
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Ryan Yager with Bowler, here representing the development team. We do have representatives on a team line as well from both the developer / owner as well as the architect. So happy to answer any questions as they come up. Definitely appreciate staff's recommendations and comments here. I did have a couple items to bring to the attention of the board just to discuss further if possible. One of which is we fully recognize the lighting comments that were made, and that is something that we understand that will get corrected going forward and have no objection there. Wanted to just dive into the western elevation of the building and the specific mention of the colors. We are prepared to go back and take a look at the different colors, but wanted to make sure that that was true a direction from the board there as far as the brightness or the muteness of those various colors. And then lastly, we'd like to dive into the landscaping and the guidelines there as far as the caliber of the trees. So we can certainly take this as a one concern at a time and have an ongoing discussion. Or I can simply state that we're happy to look back the color, just want clear direction. However, on the landscaping, we do have a robust amount of trees along the corridor there. We have basically self-imposed a 100-foot buffer to be consistent with the property down to the south of us with Brook Hill. That was also something that has a lot more landscaping and trees than what is required through the guidelines. And as such, we'd like to look into entertaining the reduction of the caliper size from the guidelines. I believe that the 3.5 inches was stated in the guidelines there, the entry corridor, to a lesser requirement there simply due to the number of trees along the buffer and also along the perimeter of the parking lot through the actual center as well there. So yeah, the reduction of the tree caliper size, the number of, the colors associated with the buildings, and those are the main items there for discussion. But we definitely appreciate your time this afternoon.
All right, well, thank you for your presentation. ARB members, Frank Stoner, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't at this time.
All right, thanks. Frank Hancock?
No questions.
Tara?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Dade?
No questions, thanks, Chris.
And I don't have any questions either. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that wish to make a comment?
No, nobody has their hand up at this time.
All right, thank you. ARB will now go into discussion. Frank Hancock, do you have any comments?
Sure. I thank the applicant for a nice package, and thank you for your presentation of kind of outlining the things that we should be talking about in some ways. I can just offer my thoughts on some of those items just to get things going, but this, could turn into a discussion. I agree with staff. I think the white trim, looking at the buildings, I think that could be more muted. So I will agree with staff's comment there. The planting size of the EC frontage trees, that's kind of a big one for us. That's something that, it's pretty distinct in our guidelines. And I don't know that, while I appreciate the buffer kind of self-imposed and the density and the size of the trees going into the buffer, these frontage trees are a little bit of a different animal and, function more as street trees, and I think are pretty critical along this corridor. So I'm less inclined to, be lenient or have a waiver on, this requirement of the guidelines. Looking at the interior landscaping, something along a street, I could maybe be swayed as allowing a smaller size tree there, especially because of the distance from the corridor. But all in all, I think it's a good application. I think, the contemporary nature of the architecture, it's tough to square some of that with our guidelines, but I think given the distance from the corridor, given this buffer, thinking contextually with what we have at Brook Hill, what's been approved, and to the orientation of the buildings, it's not the big long facade that we're dealing with. I think for all those reasons, to me, I think it's an appropriate, it's appropriate in the entrance corridor. I'll leave it at that.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Frank. Frank Stoner.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Frank Hancock has indicated. It's a little bit hard to tell how bright that white is just looking at the picture of the exhibit that was submitted. But I would tend to agree based on what I see. It'd be nice if that were a little more muted. I do tend to agree with Frank in that while the architecture is contemporary and I guess you could argue maybe not consistent with sort of Albemarle County precedents. I think there are a lot of contemporary examples out there these days. And I think given its distance from the corridor, I would have to agree that and the amount of landscaping that's going in front of it, I would have to agree that I don't really have any issue with it. As for the landscaping around the edge of the South Park, I don't know if it's the southwest edge of the parking lot. I probably have, sorry. It is, I don't have a clear sense of what will be next to it on the existing site. So, and I don't, perhaps Margaret or Chris could tell us if that additional landscaping along the parking lot and the south, I guess it would be the southwestern corner would be required or just suggested. And I'd have to look back through the comments, but those are my only comments. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thanks, Frank. Tara, do you have any comments?
I would echo Frank Hancock's comments on the caliper of the trees on the entrance corridor. I just think given a lot of the conversation that's going on about the brightness of the white trim, that it kind of does make sense, you know, thinking of and accommodating the distance from the entrance corridor, I'm less inclined to move on that one. I think things that are going on interior to the site, given its distance from the entrance corridor, I'm less concerned about the caliper of those trees. I would echo staff's comments, just based on what we're reviewing, that the white is a little bright. So maybe if you could bring it down a couple of degrees, that would be helpful. In terms of sort of context and relating to other projects around the entrance corridor, I agree while it's contemporary, that there are certain uses of materials, of brick that are helpful in sort of bringing it in line. And given the distance, I'm inclined to support the application in general. And I would echo staff's comments on the vegetation around the dumpster structure as well. So those are my big points. The maintaining that 3.5-inch caliper tree along the entrance corridor and the vegetation around the dumpster structure and the color of the trim all sound like reasonable changes to make to me.
All right, thanks a lot. Dave, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chris. I agree with my fellow board members' comments and also the staff recommendations. So I won't repeat anything else. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot. I don't really have any comments that haven't already been put forward by my fellow board members. I guess I'm an outlier. I did not have a problem with the white color it's just an accent color, so there's not a whole lot of it, but it doesn't sound like I'm in the majority with that one. So if we could review the recommended motion and make any changes.
Can you see the Word document?
Yes, thank you.
I've highlighted in just the light gray the comments that were being questioned. One is the one about the white color, and 10 and 11 are about the tree sizes.
Can I ask, this is really a question for Frank Hancock. And we argue about this all the time, the tree caliper. What I've been told is that if you plant a 2.5 and a 3.5 next to each other in 4 years, you won't be able to tell the difference. Is that, I mean, and I would say, given the cost difference between a 2.5 and a 3.5, I'd just be curious to get your feedback on that.
I guess it's dependent on species, but you know, that is definitely the case sometimes. I think we're just looking for something for that 0 to 4 year period, you know, something in the interim. I think, because when this buffer goes in, I mean, even though they're putting stuff in at 8 foot height, you know, I think all the shrubs are like 24-inch height. It's going to look pretty sparse. I mean, on plan, it looks like there's not an inch to plant anything else, but, you know, so I think the, you know, having the 3.5-inch caliper trees going in at the beginning, I think especially in this case, that will have a big impact. I think it's important. I think they'll do well here too. I think there's, you know, ample room for them to grow. It's not necessarily like an urban condition where we're shoving, you know, these large canopy trees in. They don't really have enough room to grow. So,
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
and I know, I mean, you're exactly right. It's more expensive, and especially now there's shortages in the, you know, in the industry finding stuff. But the thing that we've asked every other applicant, you know, to do this. So at this point, it's kind of, we're still working with the guidelines we have.
Yeah, I'll just add that it was intentional when the guidelines were first written and adopted to have that increased size for the entrance corridor street trees so that there would be more of an immediate impact.
All right. Well, are there any specific measures that anyone would like to modify, or is anyone willing to make a motion as is?
I guess, could I just confirm one thing with my fellow board members? We've had a lot of discussion about the 3.5-inch tree caliper for the entrance corridor trees, but are we contemplating any difference on the exterior and interior parking lot trees? Does anyone have any particular perspective on that? I agree that consistency with our guidelines is important, along with all the benefits that Frank Hancock had mentioned, but I don't have, it sounds like there's some room to discuss the parking lot trees. Is that the case?
I would be open to a concession here, mainly because of the distance from the corridor. And as the applicant mentioned, they are, you know, willingly planting this buffer, kind of self-imposed buffer. You know, the buildings are like 150 feet or so off. So the corridor, maybe this is a question for the applicant. What are you proposing? Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see a caliper size that you guys were proposing on the interior.
Happy to provide that. It would be 1.5 inches, consistent with what's been proposed within Brook Hill as well.
I'm open to that.
Yeah, I think I would support a little bit of leniency for the interior trees as well.
I would as well.
Yeah, this looks, as it's developing on the screen, I think this looks reasonable to me.
I would agree.
All right, are there any other items that anyone would like to make any changes to?
No.
All right, great. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the final site plan and architectural review for ARB-2022-08 RST Residences with the conditions listed in the staff report amended as follows. Revise item 11 to read planting size of the exterior and interior parking lot trees, maybe 1.5-inch caliper.
All right, thanks. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
All right, Carolyn, if we could have a vote.
Okay, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderpool,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell. Oh my,
Aye.
thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my, I can't say your name today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And the next item is ARB 2022-15, Prose self-storage. I think Frank is recused, and I think he's got to go, so we won't be seeing Frank after this. So Margaret, if well, looks like you're about ready.
Can you see the slide?
Yep, looks
Great.
good.
Okay. Okay, Crozet self-storage. This is a review of a final site plan and an architectural design for a self-storage facility and associated site improvements. And the location is at the northeast corner of the intersection of Route 250 West and Route 240 of Crozet Avenue. The existing site is occupied by a convenience store and fuel pump canopy, some additional commercial and residential buildings, and some wooded and open areas. The ARB completed a review of a conceptual design for this development back on September 7th of last year. And at that time, 3 different designs were submitted for consideration. A second review was completed by the ARB on December 21st of last year. And this is the design that was reviewed at that time. With this design, the primary concern about the proposal remained the scale of the building, particularly given the character of the surrounding area. The proposal has been significantly revised to address the ARB's comments from that December review. There's a 645 square foot reduction in the size of the footprint. We've got some additional measurements there on the screen for you for comparison. In the current plan, the building has been shifted away from the Route 240 entrance corridor, and a partial below grade basement takes better advantage of the topography to help reduce the mass and scale. While we're talking about the plan, just note that a community meeting room has been added in the southwest corner of the building. This was the design that was presented at the December meeting, and this is the current proposal. This is a comparison of the previous and current designs for the Route 250 elevation. The top of the slide is the previous proposal, and the bottom elevation is the current design. But the revisions in the current design draw on some of the elements found in the buildings at the shops at Clover Lawn, which is located further west on 250, and it's pictured at the top left of this slide. And it uses some of those in place of some of the more generic elements of the earlier proposal. The side-by-side comparison helps emphasize how much the mansard roof affects the mass and scale. Other changes include the gabled bays that have been added and alternate with the trellises for climbing plants. The entrance element at the southeast corner of the building has been given a pyramidal roof. The bay window at the southwest corner has been replaced with another tower element to highlight that community meeting space. And the tower has a canopy over the first floor and a clipped pyramidal roof. That roof form is different than the others and appears somewhat uncoordinated, so an alternate form may be more appropriate. The walls of the current design are primarily ephes, though there is a masonry water table. The gabled bays are illustrated with tan ephes above white ephes. Traditionally, that lighter color would probably be used above the darker color, so a shift in those colors might also be appropriate. And given the size of the building, incorporating additional masonry, possibly at the base of the gabled bays or at the corner towers, would be appropriate. The height of the main building has not changed from the previous proposal. The proposed height is 35 feet to the top of the mansard on the Route 250 side. But the change from that flat roof to the mansard roof does tend to reduce the visual impact. Gabled bays are approximately 33 feet tall and 21 feet wide. This is a comparison of the previous and current elevations facing Route 240. Again, the mansard roof and the gabled bays help improve that scale and provide more traditional architectural elements. And then finally, this is a comparison of the elevations on the north side of the building. The elevation still has no windows or doors, but again, the mansard roof and the gabled bays are improvements. This is a perspective view from the intersection looking eastward. The image helps show the depth of those gabled bays and the corner elements. And this is a view from the other direction on the entrance corridor. The perspectives also show that even with the significant architectural changes that have been made, the landscaping will be very important for integrating the building into the landscape. Also, these views show that a rhythm is set up across the facade with those gabled elements that we saw at the Clover Lawn example. And this helps with the mass of the building, but keep in mind that this building is larger than the Clover Lawn buildings. The landscape plan has been updated to maintain the existing group of trees along Route 240 and to plant new trees in the space created by shifting the building to the east. As requested, low-level plants were added along Route 250, but they do not extend along the frontage of the stormwater facility. Adding them there would help provide a more coordinated appearance across the full frontage. There are also a few details left to be resolved with the lighting plan, and they're related to the light loss factor, the color temperature, and the finishing pole height. So this is a final site plan that you would be taking action on today. Our recommendation is for approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. We recommend that you discuss in particular the architectural changes that have been made and whether those changes now make the design consistent with the guidelines. And we've also identified as particular points of discussion the extent of ephes that's used and the character of the landscaping relative to the scale and character of the building. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thanks, Margaret. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions?
I do not.
All right.
Thank you, Margaret.
Tara?
Not at this time. Thank you, Margaret, for the presentation.
Dade?
Thank you, Chris. No questions. Thanks, Margaret, for your presentation.
All right, and I don't have any questions either, but thank you, Margaret. That was a great presentation. Is the applicant here, and do they have a presentation?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Thank you for letting me come before you again. Thank you for that review, Margaret, and presentation. I appreciate it. Good to see everybody again. As you mentioned, we talked beforehand separately. Tara, nice to meet you in video at least. Margaret really covered most of everything I wanted to say, other than I don't know that she mentioned, but we do have a below grade basement level now, which was how we kind of were able to shrink the building footprint so much. So there's a 1/2 of the southern half of the building footprint is actually below grade. We also have maintained consistent with the other design in which where we put the building into the topography. So the rear of the first floor is actually also below grade to some extent. It kind of varies as you go across that northern facade, but it's also sunk into the topography in an effort to try to address the scale. So that was our main reason for doing the things we did. We heard a lot of comments in the last meeting about scale and appropriateness. And so we really tried to put our best foot forward here and got creative. And I think we've addressed these comments successfully. And I look forward to any other comments or review that you may have, and appreciate the feedback so far. And our design team is here as well. If you feel like you'd like to ask a technical question or something like that, we have the architect, engineers, and such are present.
All right, thank you. Tara, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. My first question is just on the rendering on the, I believe, the southwest corner, the Crozet storage corner of the building. It seems like there's a site wall being shown, like a stone wall of some sort. Is that the case?
Yes.
Reading the.
So one of the comments we had before was to have the building have more of a pedestrian connection and feel, and in a way to kind of interconnect at a pedestrian level. So to address that, we did two things. One is we added the meeting hall room there, so that corner storefront glass is with the arcade there and the standing seam roof is a meeting room that anybody in the public can rent and have a conference room for whatever use. And so, but also to kind of add on to that, the space where those folks are standing there in the image is a little concrete patio area with some hardscape. And then that wall there is like what you might call a knee wall, just a small architectural feature there to kind of further kind of screen things. It also gives the pedestrians, or the folks that might use that little patio area, kind of a protection from or visual, separation from the intersection there. So that's really all it is. And the material would match the foundation material in the building, which right now we have is that stone water table work.
Great. And my other question is, if you could just confirm the planting on the trellis structures that are indicated. I think I see something on the site plan, but I just wanted to hear
It's
you speak to that.
Flowering jasmine. And that's a species that actually Frank Hancock is our landscape architect and selected that for a climbing type ivy planting that would be appropriate for that trellis.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
You're welcome.
Great. Dave, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the developments in the plan.
Thanks. Frank Stoner, any questions?
I just have one. Andrew, what's the roofing material on the mansard roof?
Chris, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Would you mind answering that one? Thank you.
That would be a commercial grade fire asphalt or fiberglass shingles.
Okay. In color, or have you guys submitted that for review? Any of the specifics, or will that come later? Okay.
That'll come later.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thanks. I do not have any questions. Carolyn, are there any members of the public that want to comment?
Yes, I have one man with his hand raised. Mr. Fretwell, please state your name, address, if you're affiliated with a group station, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you. I'm James Fretwell. I live in the Brownsville community, directly across from the proposed project. And thank you all for putting this together. I have a number of concerns, honestly. I think the scale of this building is, to put it mildly, a monstrosity. I don't think that any research has been done on the size of Brownsville Road itself, on the narrowness of Brownsville Road, and how these areas are going to be utilized with a storage facility that, from what I can tell, has actually increased in size since your last meeting. Now, from what I saw, it was 30,000 and change to 31,200. So it looks like there's been some capitalization there. I believe that the meeting space is just a box check. I don't see, 5 houses in this area having a need for that meeting space. I think the idea for community in this space was best served in previous areas when the stores were vibrant. I personally worked in one of those stores for 7 years and can attest to the community and the bringing togetherness of that area. I think this is a huge miss. One thing that I've heard many debate over within the community over this project, and is it a right of the owner to build this building? And yes, from what I understand, it is. Is there a need? That's the other side of the debate. One thing I've never heard anyone say is, I need storage. I've never heard anyone say, I need a storage facility. I've talked to many people across the community that have echoed this sentiment. We have 2 very accessible storage facilities in spaces that will not make this area such a, this is a gateway as you have described it. And to have a storage facility of this magnitude at the gateway to the center of what you hope to build, I think this is a big miss. So I'll concede my time knowing that. A few other things. I noticed that the dumpster was moved. As a local resident, I'd be very concerned about trash and things that will go with much of the things that are going to be moved into that space with trucks and tractor trailers and U-Hauls going in and out. I'd be curious where the trash will go. Parking remains a concern with 11 parking spaces that I saw. With a meeting space, as I understand it, to be utilized. I don't know how many people would be taking up those spaces and how that may impact people getting in and out of this area. I know this very well as I've lived there for 40 years. And lastly, I'd be curious if any community engagement has been done by Mr. Lewis and his team to ask the community what their feelings would best feel and how this space could best utilize Crozet as it continues to grow. And to make it a point, I'm not against growth in Crozet. I've been very supportive of this project in building something in this space. I do not think that a storage facility suits Crozet at this time, and I certainly don't think that a storage facility suits this location ever. So thank you all for your time.
You.
All right, thank you. ARB will now go into discussion. Dade, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the revisions the applicant has made since the first presentation. I think the mass is substantially reduced. The height of the building is reduced, and the relief in the facade is greatly increased. So I believe that overall the site plan is in a much better place than it was in terms of the massing that's related to it. And I appreciate the applicant responding to the discussion at our last hearing.
All right, thanks, Dade. Frank Stoner.
Thanks, Chris. Let me just speak to some of the concerns I just heard because they're consistent with some of the concerns I had when we first reviewed this. And I think it's important to remember in this case that it is a by right use. So the best we can do as the ARB is to make sure that it checks as many boxes as possible with regard to architectural character and impact. And it's not our job to determine whether the use is economically feasible or a smart decision, a smart business decision. It's really our sole job just to make sure that the building is compatible with the area and with our guidelines. And I do think the applicant's done an exceptionally good job with the revised building plans. I think we could probably, I think some of the staff comments with regard to the amount of EFS and maybe some changes in color may be worth looking at. But in general, I think the applicant's done a remarkable job actually addressing the concerns that we had during our first meeting. That's all I got. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Frank. Tara?
I would just like to echo Frank's comments on the role that the ARB has to play in this process. As a sort of, I'd like to acknowledge the comments that my neighbor has expressed as a resident of Greenwood, just down the road. But I would also like to thank the applicant for making substantial changes since the initial submission. I think that there are a couple of changes that could be made from this point onward, going off of what staff has recommended, which I'm happy to discuss. But in general, I think that the application as presented is an improvement from the previous submission. So I applaud the applicant for making the time and work to do that.
All right, thank you. I kind of agree with my fellow board members. I thought the improvement in terms of massing from what we saw last time to now is remarkable improvement in terms of massing. I think I agree with the staff comments. I think there is still some room for improvement in terms of materials and some of the roof forms. But I think the biggest concern, which was the apparent mass and size of the building, is been alleviated with the massing changes. Also pulling it away from the Crozet Avenue side to allow the existing wooded buffer. It was a really strong move as well. So I think, Margaret, I guess we're ready to look at the recommended motion.
Are you able to see the list of comments?
Yes, thank you. All right, are there any specific items that any board members would like to modify?
I'd like to offer a suggestion on item number 2. And I think certainly masonry, brick or stone would be appropriate, but I also think it's possible that clapboard siding, other options might also work rather than just brick or stone. And I would leave it up to the applicant to work with Margaret and staff to determine what those are. But I think given the context, I think clapboard could probably work in some areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a range of options that would help, and it's not limited just to masonry.
I would like to, I agree with those comments. I'd also like to just, for me, I think number 1, the roof form of the southwest tower is something that I would like to see addressed by the applicant. I think the way that it's sort of the mansard melts into that form is a little bit out of character with the rest of the district, especially comparing to the precedent that was shown by staff just up the road there. So I would like to see that addressed by the applicant.
Yes, I agree. But it seems like that item 1 doesn't really require any kind of modification for them to do that. It would just be a question of, and I guess in general, it'd be a question of whether or not we're comfortable shifting the remainder of the review to Margaret and staff, or if we wanted to see this again. Personally, I'm comfortable, you know, with the massing changes that have been made. I'm comfortable with staff continuing with the review process, but that's just my opinion. Is anybody comfortable making a motion?
I guess before we get to that, one other thought, and I'd be curious to get you all's take on this, is maybe revisiting the colors. I think of the stucco, and perhaps a more muted color for the recessed areas, and a more, I don't want to say lighter color, but a less muted color for the gable bump outs. And again, I wouldn't make that a requirement, but I think there's, given the size of the building and the size of those wall areas, making those feel more recessed might help.
I agree, Frank. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I also agree with that. That's a good suggestion.
Frank, I'm sure I did not get your actual wording. I'm not sure if
I think that's good. You got it.
I guess one other thing I would like to raise to get my fellow board members input on is I'm just looking at the, I guess it would be the southeast tower now. Just given the changes that have taken place, it seems like in order to repeat what's going on in the rest of the building, that it might make sense for the stories 2 and 3 on that tower to be the same windows as the other portions of the building, maintaining storefront at the ground level, but changing those windows to match what's going on in the other part of the building.
I think that's a good suggestion for more consistency.
What are those windows currently? That's kind of hard to tell.
Which windows? The ones in
One's
the,
on the southeast corner.
that's storefront.
Okay.
Yeah, I think swapping the storefront for the same vinyl fixed windows would be helpful in making this more consistent.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Any other suggestions? All right, is anyone comfortable making a motion?
I'll move to approve the final site plan for ARB 2022-15 Crozet Self-Storage with the conditions listed in the staff report amended as follow. Item 2, add or an alternate material, possibly clapboard after brick or stone. Add item 14, consider revising the wall colors to emphasize the recesses. Add item 15, revise the windows of the second and third stories of the southeast tower to match the windows at the second and third stories of the rest of the building.
All right, thank you. Is anyone willing to second that? I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
and Mr. Mitsuno.
Aye.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. In terms of other business, would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the March 7th ARB minutes?
So moved.
All right, a second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Mitsuno.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next meeting would be scheduled for April 4th. However, there are no review items scheduled. So we can cancel that meeting, which would make the next meeting April 18th. Does anyone know that they would not be able to attend? I'm expecting that I will be able to, so.
I believe I can attend on the 18th.
Yes, I can. I believe
And
as well.
And I believe I'm recusing myself from a couple items, but it sounds like the quorum's still going to be there, so I'll be there.
Great. Thank you. All right, so other items. Margaret, do you have a request regarding the comprehensive sign plan for ABC?
Yeah, I have a question for you all. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to share my screen so I can show you a few images.
Great, thank you.
Are you able to see that slide? Okay. So the ARB has reviewed a few different parts of the development that's called Albemarle Business Campus. It's located on off of 5th Street Extended, basically across from the county office building at 5th Street. We've looked at apartment buildings and the storage building. Both of those, you completed multiple reviews and those are approved, and you've done one review of the office building that's adjacent to the entrance quarter street. Just real quickly, here's a reminder of what the storage building looked like, and that's in that location where that green star is. The office building that you reviewed preliminarily, there's an image of it, and again, located generally where the green star is, and the apartments off to the sort of southwest there. This is a building that you've not looked at yet. It will be coming to you in the future. Again, it would be behind, on the parcel behind the office building that you've looked at. So we've just last week had contact with one of the representative, one of the sign companies getting ready to make a proposal for signs for the storage building. And in our discussion, it occurred to me that, or in my discussion with the sign company rep, it occurred to me that when we all were talking through these various reviews, we did not talk about how you wanted to deal with a comprehensive sign plan for any or all of these buildings. So the question for you would be, are you expecting a comprehensive sign plan to deal with all of the buildings? Typically, more typically, the comprehensive sign plans we see in shopping centers, basically. So you might feel differently about having to have coordinated signage across all these buildings. Maybe you just want to make sure that the individual buildings have coordinated signage. So that's really the question for you. Give you another image of, some of these buildings are getting a little distant from the entrance corridor, particularly those apartment buildings have very limited visibility. So the question is, are you expecting a comprehensive sign plan for all the buildings together, or just for the individual buildings?
I guess just speaking for myself, my opinion is that even the examples that we know about are so different in form and style that it'll be really difficult, first of all, to come up with a comprehensive sign plan. And it seems like it wouldn't be needed. I think, as you pointed out, if you have a shopping center where, all the buildings are, directly related to each other in form, then, you want the signage to be consistent. This doesn't seem like that case at all. So,
yeah, I agree with Chris.
Okay. Is there general consensus on that?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, I concur.
Seems reasonable to me. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's what I needed. Thank you so much.
Okay.
great. So I guess I will adjourn this meeting until Monday, April 18th. By my clock, it is 2:09 p.m. So I wish everyone a great month until I see you all again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Thanks,
Thanks,
a lot.
Margaret.
See you. Thank you.